So, we're here to talk about guitar making, drawing and marking out techniques. So, I think it's the most important skill because, I mean, if your marking out's bad, it doesn't matter how accurate you cut out, does it? You're still going to be wrong. So, you need a drawing. So, if you've already got a drawing, then you're one up on the rest of us. If you haven't got a drawing, then you're going to need to go through the design process. So we're going to show you a little film now. Hopefully this works. We're going to show you a little film of a guy who came to the workshop. This is Rohan, who came and we worked through. What I do is I basically ask all the questions to find out what you want on your guitar, and then we go through and we design it. So if you were building a guitar, you'd be doing this for yourself, or you'd be doing this for your customer. If you're building a guitar for somebody else, then you need to go through this and ask all the questions to make sure you're building them what it is that they want. So let's play you the film, and then we'll come back afterwards and I'm going to show you some of the little tips and tricks for marking out.
Rohan contacted us originally about a custom version of the Bailey Bandsman, and as I'll be building it from scratch, I suggested he came to visit for a one-to-one design session. Once he realised I could make him just about anything, he changed his spec completely, which is normal, and he'd already done quite a bit of drawing before he got here, which is not. He lives in Cambridgeshire, and by the time he arrived at the workshop he had lots of ideas and questions. Together we discussed all those, and by the end of the session had completed a full-scale working drawing. This process enables us both to work out what is practical, possible and within budget. Much of guitar making is about making the right choices for the individual player. My job is to ensure the end result will be a guitar which is exactly as the person wants it to be. When the design session is over, there may well be some things to think about and more decisions to make, but working through the process of making a working drawing helps to make everything clearer to both of us, and I have a drawing with all the key info on it to refer to throughout the build. We don't usually film, but it seemed like a good way to show what the custom design session is about. If you're not able to visit, don't worry, I can get all the information I need using emails and pictures. If you've ever wanted to design your own guitar or have one made for you, but don't know where to start, contact Bailey Guitars. That's what we do.
So there you go, nice little drawing there, nice little film, one of my early films. So yeah, you need a drawing. You can buy one or make your own. I'll show you the whole process. In fact, towards the end of this little broadcast, I'm going to show you another film which is a minute and a half long, I think, and that shows you another guitar getting designed in time lapse from start to finish. And yeah, it's a little test for you to see how many little marking out techniques you can spot in that little minute and a half film. So, yeah, so this whole series of this playlist, guitar, tools and tech, it's basically all about what to do to make a difficult job easier. So what do you do if a job is too difficult? Well, you can spend more time just chugging away and learning how to do it. Not allowed to say chug in Scotland, it means something rude. You can spend more money, you can buy better tools or an expensive jig or something, or you can ask for help. So if you're at school, you can ask a woodwork teacher, or my old favourite is make friends with someone who's got a workshop. That's what I did originally when I needed large pieces of wood planed and I didn't have an electric planer. I would take them to, I made friends with a guy and basically for a pint, or I gave him a tenner, he would put my big bits of wood through a machine and they would come out nice, planed, flat and straight for me. So yeah, make friends with someone who's got a workshop. Main thing I would say is don't worry. You can't expect to be brilliant at everything straight away. There's going to be like 9 or 10 different techniques over the coming weeks I'm going to show you. Don't expect to be brilliant at every one of them straight away. You might take to some of them better than others. Some of them are going to take a bit more practice. And my best advice is to always practice on scrap first. So don't practice on your expensive piece of wood, or even worse, somebody else's expensive guitar. So it might take a while to get used to it, but yeah, have fun practicing, do it on scrap, and then nobody's going to get upset either. I guess if you know, if it is completely out of your reach, you do need somewhere to build a guitar. You need a bench, and you do need a certain amount of tools. I've got my list of minimum tools that I recommend. But if that's out of the question and you just haven't got anywhere to do it and you just haven't got any tools, then that's what the workshop courses are for. So people have been coming to my workshop for almost 20 years now. I've taught over 400 people how to build guitars completely from scratch, face to face, and everybody leaves with a guitar that they're totally proud of and they think is the best guitar in the world. So yeah, it's probably not as hard as you think. I'm going to do 9 or 10 different techniques over the coming weeks. First one is going to be measuring and marking out, so let's get on with that right now. So hopefully you know why we want to do it. It's the most important thing, because if you don't measure out accurately, then you can't cut out accurately. So here's the first tip, using the pencil. So you're only as accurate as you're marking out, so your pencil needs to be sharp. Which camera are we on, Carol?
On your face.
My face. Can we have a close-up cam?
I was just checking if we had an issue, but I think we sorted it.
Nice sharp pencil.
Overhead.
Nope, this one over here. Close-up cam.
3.
So I've got a fancy pencil sharpener, but you could just use a blade. When I'm drawing and marking out, I usually sharpen up 2 or 3 pencils. Now I love just a normal pencil, that is, nothing special about it. I love these clicky pencils, but I keep snapping the lead. I'm too heavy handed, so I'm no good with these, although I do love them. They're definitely no good for drawing on the internet because you won't see what I'm doing, so I'm going to use these pencils here. Now I'm not going to take you through the entire design process, we haven't got time for that. That's what I do on the course. I take you through all the options, every single option, and there's a lot of them, so it takes a while. That's all the headstock options, pickup options, bridge options, wood, all the parts, all the hardware, electrics, everything's all covered on the Design Your Own Guitar course. I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to show you a few tips and tricks for drawing. Okay, so let's do that. I've got my list here because I just want to make sure I do it in the right order. So yeah, as I said, believe it or not, you can even use a pencil wrong. Can we have the overhead cameras set, Carol?
Yeah.
And maybe this close in one as well. Let's go on the close in one and see if I can get this. Right, watch this, guys. When you're drawing with a pencil, you've got to go right into the ruler like that. Tip the pencil so it's right into the edge. Because if you hold it straight, like the pencil's sort of angled, so it will mark away from the ruler. If I hold that perfectly straight and then show you those two lines, I see people do this, and look, that's a millimetre away. Let me show you again. So you need to get right into the ruler like that. I see people do this and draw a line, and then they end up with, you can't see that, can you? How's that? You can miss your line by a whole millimetre just by angling the pencil. So that's the first thing. Believe it or not, I see people do that. Okay. Because of the conical shape, it holds the pencil away from the ruler and you end up missing the ruler. So that's the first thing. Using a pencil, believe it or not, you can even do that wrong. So I'm going to mark a centre line on this piece of paper. So I'm going to measure in 10 inches. So this is what I call measuring in. So I've got my 10-inch line, you can't see it.
Do you want it on the overhead or?
Let me zoom out a bit on the overhead.
Okay.
And then maybe move this. Can you get the close-up cam just for a second? So this is 10 inches here.
Sorry, it's just having a few glitches, it's fine.
And then the overhead cam again.
Overhead.
Right, I'm going to mark 10 inches on the end of the ruler there. So this is called measuring in, or marking in from an edge. So we do this usually when we're marking a centre line. The reason is, if I said mark in 10 inches from the edge there, right, then most people do this. They put a ruler on, line it up with the edge there, and they try and mark 10 inches there. Well, there's two possible places for error. You might not have it quite lined up there, and you might not have it quite lined up there. So there's two possible places for error. But if you do it this way round, 10 inches lined up on the edge here, and then you mark the end of the ruler, that's always going to be the same. And so when you mark this down, you know it's always going to be exactly the same, and you've cut the amount of errors in half. So you've only got one possible error. That's a good idea. Half the amount of errors. Now, when you're joining up two lines, place the tip of the pencil on one of the lines. Going to need some camera work, Carol.
Going for it now.
Like this one. You need to follow me. Place the tip of the pencil on the line like this. So I'm joining up these two lines. I'm joining up a mark here and a mark here. So I put my pencil on this mark. And then I move the ruler up to it. And then I put my pencil on the other mark. And then move the ruler up to that. Now I'm going to repeat that just to make sure. I've lost my mark. So I've just got to repeat it until I make sure that my pencil's on both marks when the ruler's in place. And then when I draw my line, then I know that it's going to cross both marks. So this is basic stuff, but it's important to be accurate. Now, while I'm on the subject of accuracy, when you're making a drawing, doesn't really need to be super accurate. You can always rub it out and do it again if you get it completely wrong. We work out all our mistakes on the drawing, and then when we mark out on the wood, hopefully we won't make any mistakes. But on a drawing, it doesn't need to be super accurate. It's only really a layout to make sure that nothing's interfering with anything else. The next thing, so we've done measuring in. Next thing is to do marking a square line. So one of the first lines we mark when we're designing a guitar is marking the nut line, and I use a drafting square for this. So when you're drawing a line on paper, we use a drafting square. So we can line up this centre line there. Line up the centre line with the centre line, and then that will give you a line across. So you've probably heard of a set square, that's for marking out on wood. This is a drafting square for marking out on paper. So let's just mark that as if that's the nut. So the question that everybody asks me is, how do you get the width of the neck? And it comes from whatever nut you choose. You can choose your own width of nut, but the bridge, obviously, at the bridge end, you'll be buying a bridge. So I would advise that you get your parts all in advance. When you're doing any kind of design or drawing, you can get your parts in advance, and you can actually use that to lay out on your drawing and make sure everything's in the right place. So I'm just going to quickly show you now how we do a centre line and mark a square line on your actual piece of wood. So it's very similar. Let's measure this. It's about 46 mil. So it's the same method. I'm 46 mil on the edge there, and then I make a mark. So that's instead of doing it this way round, because you might not have that quite lined up, and then you might not get it quite lined up there. So do it this way round, and you're halving the amount of errors. So 46, 46, 46, 46. Some of you might remember in a recent live stream I made this scarf neck pattern. So I'm just going to mark it out as if I'm making a neck with it for you. Put the pencil on the mark, move the ruler up to the mark. Put the pencil on the other mark, move the ruler up to it, and then draw the centre line on. I'm going to draw the centre line on the headstock as well. And now this is a pre-made fretboard. I always recommend, if you're building a guitar, start with the fretboard. And I've made 2 videos how we make fretboards, how we do it, and the hard way. So if you want to know how we made this, then check out that video. We'll put a link in the description, or you can just search the site. And also, these are available to buy on the website. I always say, if you're making your first guitar, there's no shame in buying a pre-made fretboard. But it's the first thing we make. It's a great thing to have because it's handy for marking out. Instead of measuring it, we can use the actual thing. So I'm going to quickly mark a centre line on that, and then we can just draw around it to mark on the neck. So this is how we quickly find a centre and mark it onto an existing piece of wood if it's an odd shape. So finding a centre, I use a nice round number like 100. You might have to zoom in on this, Carol. So let's use a nice round number, and then what I can do is look at the edges. So without doing any maths, I can just count 1, 2 and 1 and a bit. 1, 2, 1 and a bit. Believe it or not, you can get that super accurate. It's surprising how accurate most people can do that. Plenty enough for our purposes. So again, round number in the middle, and then I'm just, without using any maths, I can just quickly find the centre really accurately. And then I'm going to join them up just like I did before. And now I can just simply line up the centre lines on the wood and draw that on. So again, the width of this fretboard is tapered, and that's come from the width of the bridge down this end and the width of the nut at this end. So they were predetermined. I do go through all that on the course. That's not what this video is about. I'm just showing you some tricks and tips for measuring, drawing and marking out. Okay. Now, let's say we've got a design on our drawing here. I'll just draw that on. Here's our guitar design, and we've meticulously designed our headstock here. So when we're designing a headstock, we're really careful to make sure that the strings all arrive at the right place. Again, that's all covered on the design course, not in this video. But I'm going to show you how, this is drawing techniques. I'm showing you now how to transfer a drawing from the page onto your workpiece. So I need some tracing paper. Do that. Tracing paper. Always a good idea to tape it down in place. And what I'm doing here is I'm using this edge here as one of my lines. So I'm going to use that as my nut takeoff line, and I'm going to tape it down in place. So the first tip when you're tracing a shape is to tape your tracing paper down in place so it doesn't move halfway through. Okay, and then I always draw the centre line on first, because if it does happen to move and you need to realign it, then it's a simple matter to realign it with the centre line. So now we've got the centre line, and our line here is a datum. We could actually take that off and put it back on, and we know it's going to go back in the same place. So now I'm going to trace the outline. Have you got a good angle on that, Carol?
Yeah.
So nice and dark. We can use a ruler for the straight lines. I'm going to trace it nice and dark. I can't hear you whispering, Carol. Sorry. Okay, let's mark the tuners as well. Why not? I would normally mark a little cross actually. Right, so here's my pattern. We can transfer that onto our guitar. Now it's going to print out upside down, as you can see. Maybe you like that. Maybe you want a reverse headstock. If you want a reverse headstock, that's the way to go. Should we do a reverse headstock or should we do it the right way around? Go on, who's the first to respond? Let's see who's the first to respond. Reverse or normal? Reverse. Normal. What do you reckon, guys?
Right way. Everybody's saying right way. Oh, apart from Jim McMillan. So we've had 3 right ways instantly and then...
Right, sorry Jim, you've been outvoted. Well, that's all right. We'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone here then. I'm going to show you how we trace it out onto a piece of MDF as well then, at the same time. Backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape it down in place. Let's do it there on the edge. I'm going to tape it down again so it doesn't move. And you probably did this in school. I know I did. So they teach you to go around and scribble all over it. Well, that's wrong. Everything they teach you in schools is wrong. I'm going to show you this way to do it instead. You just draw over it more accurately. Just the same, watch this. So I'm going to use this pencil, the ruler again for the straight lines. And I'm just going over the lines. So I've taped it down upside down. So the original pencil I drew is on the underneath. And I'm now going over it on the back. And what happens is it prints out onto the front. So, it's not a guitar making live stream unless we drop something. So I broke my golden rule. My golden rule is usually draw the centre line first. So if you become misaligned, you can line it back up again. But at least it's on there. So now if I take that off, can you see that is on the printed out onto the piece of scrap MDF? Well, that, my friends, is how we make the patterns. So that's how I made that. Now, on next week, I'm going to show you how we actually cut this out and use the bandsaw to make the patterns. Again, that's in answer to questions that I'm getting, and I'm just trying to help you guys out with your guitar building. So come back next week and I'll show you how we make that into a headstock pattern. I'll show you how we make the other patterns as well, like the humbucker template and all the others. We'll be focusing next week on how to use a bandsaw. So I could also tape that on here, and I'm going to mark it out onto the neck as well. Who knows, maybe in a future live stream we'll actually make this into a working neck. Maybe we'll actually finish it off. I'm just going to tear that so that I can tape it down. And now draw my shape on. So because I've gone over the back of this now with pencil, when I draw over it, it's going to print through again. So you don't have to make the patterns. If you're just making one guitar, you probably don't want to make a pattern. You probably just want to make the actual headstock, which is fine. So it's a particularly angry looking headstock, this one. And it's actually, if you look, it's actually gone off the edge of the piece of wood. I've got two options. I've got two options. I could reshape the headstock, or I could glue a piece on. I think in this case, because you know, nobody's chosen this particular shape, I'm just making it as an example. I think what I'll do is I'll just reshape the headstock to fit on the piece of wood. Otherwise, I would just take this piece here and just slide it over there and glue it on there. In this case, I'll just reshape the headstock. So yeah, along the way when you're building your guitar, you might run into things like this where you have to make a decision. Shall I keep it as intended, or shall I adjust to suit the piece of wood I've got? These are the kind of things you have to live with when you're a guitar maker. If it was important to keep that shape, then I would definitely glue a piece on. But for me, I'm not really that bothered. So let's just redraw it. So we'll keep that. Mark on the tuners. Okay, and so we're getting close to the end now, folks. We've got to do I've done transferring a traced image. I'm just going to show you how we mark. If we're drilling a hole, then we would mark these with a punch. I've got a couple of other little things I want to say as well before we finish. So don't click off. Don't go away just yet. And then we've got some question and answers. So, yes. So other tools that you might need for measuring and marking out. So you'll need a pokey thing. I call it a pokey thing. Just anything that's sharp. A fine sharp point. Something like, let's see if we can get this camera to focus.
Camera 3.
Something like that.
Oh yeah.
All that. Anything will do. Something pokey. It's for marking out things like your side dots. If you're doing any metalwork, then you need something to mark on the metal, which you use a scribe. So I would call this a scribe, is the proper word for it. I call it a pokey thing. So you just need something sharp, small and sharp, and it's for marking out your holes and stuff accurately. So let me show you what I do. If I just tip that up, maybe you can see. So let's mark it really gently with a punch, really gently. And then what I can do is check the position. I can see I actually missed slightly. So then I would go with a proper punch. So this is a full size punch. When I'm trying to mark out as accurately as possible, I always go with a fine punch first, and then I'll finish off with a normal punch. So this is just a normal center punch that you can get from anywhere. Not expensive. It's a bit more heavy duty. It's handy, especially if you're marking out onto ebony, like your side dots. Something a bit more heavy duty. So I always go over these with something a bit more heavy duty like that, and you can nudge it into position. So I missed my line slightly. I'm going to just push it back onto the line like that. You can nudge it into the direction you want it to go, and then when you're happy, mark it a bit deeper. So there's 3. It takes me 3 goes to make a punch. I do a fine punch, and then I get the bigger punch and just nudge it into position. So that way you can mark out your holes really accurately. it's hard to get it exactly right first time, so you just do it gently and then nudge it into position. So I believe that covers all of the basic marking out techniques. You'll need a pencil, a ruler, a short one and a long one. You'll need a drafting square, and for marking square lines on your wood, a set square. So let's mark that nut line across there. So you could use the drafting square as well, but usually for wood we usually use the set square. So this is an engineer's set square. You get a set of 3 and it's about the same price as a woodworker's set square. I don't know why. So I prefer to buy the engineer's squares. I don't know why, but they seem to be cheaper and more accurate. So I bought a set of 3. You get a smaller one and a bigger one. That's the medium sized, for the same price as what you'd spend on one woodworking one. So who knows why. And another measuring tool that you might need is a radius gauge. I've got a couple of types here. I've lost them. Well, these are notched radius gauges anyway. So these are notched to fit over the strings. They don't need to be, but you might need a radius gauge when you're working on your fretboard to measure the radius. So we're talking about measuring. A radius gauge is something you can make or buy. Pokey thing, centre punch, and that is really all you need. That's everything on my list. There's lots of other tools that you can buy, vernier gauges, digital calipers, all sorts of things to make it easier. You don't actually need. So we're going to do some questions, and then I've got one more thing to tell you before we go.
Okay, so you've got all sorts of people in there today. First question came from a new guy, Fingerstyle Rojack. He's asking, can you, this is way back he asked this, can you combine more than 2 pieces of wood to make a body? He's got some 2x2s.
Yeah, you can glue as many pieces together as you want. One piece guitar bodies are actually quite rare. I don't know, they cut wood down younger than they used to. Trees don't grow as old as they used to. They cut them younger. You don't get such big cuts. It's harder to find, although they do exist. So most guitars are made from 2 pieces at least. 2 pieces glued together like that. There's no reason why this couldn't be 8 pieces glued together, or even more. I've seen people, you end up with kind of like a mosaic effect. You can use different woods glued together, chopped and re-glued to make patterns, like a mosaic effect, parquet effect. And of course you could, let's say you made the back from like 16 pieces. If you wanted to hide that, you could always put a fancy piece of wood on the front. So this is one, I don't know if you can see, it's a drop top that we made recently in a live stream. I made this drop top body blank, if you can see that curve there. So where the elbow carve is, it's curved. It's called a drop top. It doesn't have to be curved. This could be just flat. We call it a flat top, or it could be a thicker cap and carved, we call it a carved top. So this could maybe be the body for this guitar. They suit each other quite well, don't they, Carol?
Sorry, yeah.
So there you go.
And
I'll just quickly show you the body. So, as I mentioned earlier, I like to use the fretboard to mark out the neck, as you saw. We can also use it to mark out the body. So I know my neck joins the body at the penultimate fret. Actually, I could probably make it on the last fret on this guitar. Last fret level with the bottom of the horn there. So I can measure out and mark out the scale length, which on this guitar is, it's 25.5" scale on this. So 25.5 there, and I can mark the end. If I can find a pencil. Can't find a pencil. Or a pencil sharpener.
where's your pencil sharpener? Nice there.
Yeah, I know. Where did it go? Okay, pencil sharpener's there. Lost my pencil. See, we edit all this stuff out normally. Can't do it live, can you? Right, I'm measuring 25.5 inches from the nut takeoff point, and I'm marking the end of the fretboard. So my pickups are going to go between there and there. I'm going to use this pattern here to draw the pickups on. So again, I'm not going to show you now how we make these, but I'm going to show you how we use them to mark out. So to get in the centre, I'm going to use my drafting square and mark 43mm each side. And then I can use that to line up in the centre. Here's the scale length and here's the end of the fretboard. So I need to leave 2mm there for the pickups around, and I'm going to need to leave 20mm this way, because that's the bridge position and that's the back of the back pickup, 20mm from the scale length line. So I'm not trying to tell you how to design a guitar now. If you want to know all the ins and outs and the measurements, you're going to have to sign up for the course. But I just want to show you how quickly you can mark out a guitar if you've got the patterns.
Take some more questions.
Yep, keep the questions coming.
Okay, so the same guy, Fingerstyle Rojack, also asked, what do you think is better, bolt-on neck, through neck, or a glued neck? What's better?
So I try not to say anything's better. The question was what's better, a bolt-on neck, through neck, or set neck? Bolt-on neck is cheapest, and then set neck, and then through neck are more expensive, basically because of with a bolt-on neck you start off with a 1" neck blank. With a set neck you start off with a 2" neck blank, so you've already doubled your cost straight away. 2" neck blank. And then with a through neck you need a really long,
My overhead cam, by the way.
you need a really long one to get the whole guitar on, and it also needs to be thicker to give you the depth, so you've got enough depth for a thing, for a trem. So yeah, it mainly comes down to expense. Whether anyone's better than the other or not, they say that a set neck has more sustain than a bolt-on, and a through neck has more sustain than a set neck, but you'll always find the guitar that books the trend.
Okay,
So one isn't necessarily better than another.
right, EP said, is teak heavy?
Teak weighs a ton, yes.
Right, teak weighs a ton. Okay.
Not ideal for guitar making, but you can use it. It's not ideal.
Deej asked, what is the rule of thumb for the string gap at the edge of the fretboard? He asked that when you were measuring your fretboard. When you didn't.
Right, so I do go through all this on the course, but basically, if you start with your bridge, let's go back to the drawing. I was just laying out my controls here, so I just use normal controls to lay out, draw around them. Oops. And it's just to make sure that everything doesn't interfere with anything else, really. Okay, and then I need a cover pattern for that. I'll get to that question in a minute. Deej. So that would be a suitable cover plate. This is another pattern. So I'll show you how to make these patterns next week using the bandsaw. So I'm going to show you tips and tricks on the bandsaw. And then the week after I'm going to show you actually routing techniques, how to use the patterns. Oh, that's the other radius gauges I was looking for. Another type of radius gauge. But you can make your own. Yeah, what was the question again?
So Deej asked, what's the rule of thumb for the string gap at the edge of the fretboard?
So there's our body marked out. I'll show you on the drawing. Right, so this is all covered in the course, but this is one of the most common questions. So let's do it now. This basically is how you work out this taper. So we would start with marking out our centre line and our nut takeoff point, and we need to know the scale length. So at this point you've already decided what your scale length is. In this case 25.5. So I've marked it here, 25.5. Right, don't go away, because when I've answered these questions, I'm going to show you a very short time-lapse film where I design a whole guitar from start to finish, and it will answer these questions for you again, hopefully. I'll stick around to the end if there's any more questions at the end, all right? But let me show you this now. Right, here's a nut. So this is how we work out. We've got our bridge at this end, and if I measure the spacing from the outside two strings, it's 52mm from string to string. 52mm. So if I measure out, using our technique, measuring out from the centre, 26mm. And 26mm, that gives us 52 overall. So that's where our strings are. Now we add 3 to 4mm, so 1/8 of an inch. Now for drawing purposes and for building purposes, I always add 4mm, because it's very easy to take it off but you can't put it back on. So if I mark 4mm, and we're going to do the same this end, Carol. It's a little bit easier this time because we've bought a pre-made nut and the strings are actually marked on. So we're just going to use the actual nut that I've bought to mark the strings. So again, we add 1/8 of an inch. I've already drawn it on this one. Add 1/8 of an inch. 3 to 4mm. So if you wanted a narrow neck, I would say add 3mm. If you want a wide neck, add 4mm. I always add 4, like I said, to be on the safe side. And then you can see, if you join these up, you can see how it goes over the line I've already drawn. So that's how I did it before. See how it lines up already with the line that I drew on earlier, because that's exactly how I did it before. ideal. Which camera are we on? Can you see that?
Go to 3 if you want. Oh, hold on. Oh,
Switch it. Brilliant. So, yeah, questions then.
okay.
While I try and remember what the last thing is.
So let's. EP's asked a question about if you if you add glue to a bolt-on neck, if you glue a bolt-on neck on as well, would that improve sustain, do you think? I might need to repeat that.
Yeah, you wouldn't glue a bolt-on neck on. Wouldn't really help, to be honest. You're actually losing the main advantage of a bolt-on neck. So each of these styles of construction, I call them styles of construction. So for instance, this guitar, this could be made as a bolt-on, a set neck or a through neck. I call them different styles of construction. So a bolt-on style, the main advantage is that it's easy to replace the neck. So if something goes wrong, if your neck warps, twists, or if you drop it, or if your dog bites it in half or something, you can just unscrew it and bolt a new one on. That has happened, by the way. I had a call from a guy. I wonder if you can repair my guitar. The dog bit the neck in half. While the guy was out at work, and then just spent the rest of the day chewing on the end. And the guy said, "Can you repair it?" I think I turned that one down. So yeah, it does happen. The dog could bite your neck in half while you're out at work. So the main advantage of a bolt-on neck is that you can easily unscrew it and bolt it back on. If you glue a bolt-on neck in, there isn't really enough gluing surface to get a good grip. That's why a set neck is a 2-inch neck blank, because it gives you more gluing surface. So the answer to your question, I'm afraid, is no, don't glue your bolt-on neck in to get more sustain.
Okay.
More question?
Yeah. So Ham-Fisted Steve, Camberslang Steve, he says, could you really, is it possible for him to make an acoustic? I think he's finding it hard to.
Yes, it is possible. As I always say, most guitars are made in factories and they're not populated by genius luthiers. Ask me how I know. I used to be one of them. I used to work in a factory with a bunch of numpties who looked just like me. Yeah, so
Nice mullets.
basically what I've done is I've broken it down into about 50 or 60 simple jobs that I believe anybody can do. I know anybody can do it because I've taught over 400 people face to face and nobody's ever failed. What I've done is I've filmed every step of the process so that you can follow me at live speed. You can skip through all the boring bits if you want to, but if you want to watch every piece of it, then it's all there for you. And I'm sure once you've seen it done, you think, I could do that. So at the moment, we're restricted to online courses, but we do normally run workshop courses where people come here to the workshop. Like I say, I've taught over 400 people to do it here in the workshop. I've also got hundreds more students doing it online. I can't believe it, but they're all over the world, from Brazil to
Somewhere else.
all over Europe, all over the world, America, Russia. Basically, you think of a country, I've probably got a student building a guitar. Australia, New Zealand.
Ham-Fisted Sven.
So, and we're all ham-fisted. Look, I'm ham-fisted. Don't ask me to put a shelf up because it'll probably be wonky. But I can build you a guitar. Yeah, so yeah, it's not as hard as you think. It's just a long list of jobs that you have to do step by step, and it's all about, you need to know what to do, what order to do it in, and you need to know when to stop. So you need to know what to do it in, and when it's done. And that's what I'm here for. Also, if you do get stuck and you've got any questions, then you can just ask. If you're a premium member, then you can ask as many questions as you want. Pick my brains all day long. That's my job. That's what I'm here for. You've got another question?
Yeah, just that Deej, he's left now, but he asked earlier, he said it's a shame you don't sell patterns. So I
Yes,
said we're on that.
good question, Deej. Yes, patterns, we're on it. So coming soon. Yeah, Darren with his CNC machine is going to start printing out the patterns for us, so they'll be available. I am going to show you how to make them yourself, but again, everything in the end comes down to time and money, and it comes down to what do you have most of. So when I started, I didn't have any money, I had no tools. In fact, I did build up a collection of tools, as Carol reminded me earlier. I had a toolkit and it was stolen, so I had all my tools stolen, everything I had. At one point I was literally down to nothing. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking from experience here. You don't need to go and buy hundreds of tools. There's a few that you need, and there is a list. It's all available for free. You can download that. There's a checklist where you can tick off the tools as you get on. The checklist, tick off the tools as you get on. It's not a lot, and if you look, there is the video essential tools for guitar makers where I talk you through each one. And next week we'll be focusing on the bandsaw, so that's going to be exciting. So what I want you guys to do is think of your bandsaw questions, and also if you're already a member, or if you're already a guitar maker, or if you've already made a start, I want you to take a picture of your bandsaw, go to the forum and upload it. My bandsaw. So yeah, readers' tools. I've always wanted to do this. It's like readers' wives, but with tools, right? So I want you to send a picture of your favourite tools. No nudity, please. No flesh. Any of that and you'll get banned straight away. All right. But we want readers' tools. Picture of your bandsaw, please. And what I'm basically interested in is what bandsaw did you choose and why. So I'm going to show you next week. I'm going to show you mine bandsaws. I've got a few actually. So yeah, next week bandsaws. So in between now and then, I want you to let me know all your bandsaw questions and pictures of bandsaws in the forum, please. guitarmaking.co.uk. Go to the forum and upload a picture of your bandsaw, or if you've got more than one, your favourite bandsaw. And I want to know all your questions, all right? So readers' tools. So do we have any more questions?
No, we had a comment though earlier on.
Yeah.
Apparently Jim McMillan's kitten absolutely loves you. The kitten is mesmerised by you. And
Must be the hair.
And then Matt in Denver said
Cats
that,
like the hair.
Yeah, Matt in Denver said his cat likes you as well. So you're
Wow.
loved by guitar makers and kittens all over the world.
Right, so we've managed to reverse the internet. So the rest of the internet is people loving kittens, and on our channel, the kittens watch this channel. What is going on? Honestly, the world's gone crazy. So, in a world of craziness, if you found something useful in that, please like, share and subscribe. If you've got a cat, introduce your cat to our channel. Young, old cats, maybe even old cats might like it. Yeah, I checked out the stats and it says 100% male. So all my viewers, 100% of them are male. Where's all the female guitar makers? I know you're out there because I've seen you doing your DIY stuff. I've seen you women with your workshops. So why aren't you making guitars? We need more women guitar makers. I'm putting the call out now, all right, for more women guitar makers. We need more women to watch the channel.
Oh, you've got a comment though. Mr. Jiu-Jitsu 95 says, hey my friend, I loved your scarf jig. I did one and love it.
Rock and
so
roll.
much easier.
Ah, brilliant. And it worked. Rock and roll, brilliant. That's good to hear. So that's somebody who's watched one of my previous videos and found it useful.
So much easier.
That makes it all worthwhile for me.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. So yeah, I'm here to share the knowledge, share the joy, because yeah, I was very lucky when I was younger to get a job in an actual guitar factory. And so it was a dream come true for me, until of course the dream ended and I had to set up my own workshop. So I'm here to share the knowledge with you guys. If you have any questions, if there's anything that that I haven't covered, make sure that you ask it in the comments, leave a comment. And I've just got to say happy birthday, Ed. It's your 60th birthday and I've hidden your guitar. I'm just going to go and find it. 60th birthday tomorrow, and I'm building you your guitar. I'm sorry it's not actually finished for your birthday, but we've made major progress. I've lost it. I don't know where I put it because I hid it. Right, so I'm going to have to update you another time because I've hidden it.
You put it somewhere safe.
Yeah, I'm very good at hiding things from myself. So yeah, happy birthday, Ed, and thank you to everybody for your support. So Ed supported us by commissioning a guitar. I do build guitars as well for folks. So if you want to commission a guitar, that's just contact me, Bailey Guitars, mark@baileyguitars.co.uk, or Carol. If you want to get on the courses, go to guitarmaking.co.uk. If you found something useful, like, share, subscribe and all that kind of stuff.
Are we going to finish with the film?
And oh yeah, the film. I forgot the film. What an idiot. So this is one of the most popular films we're going to finish with. One of the most popular films on my channel. It's very short and it's a very quick, super duper fast, what do they call it? Time lapse of a complete guitar design from start to finish. And it will just reinforce some of the things we've gone over already. So yeah, if you've stuck till the end, absolutely brilliant. This is your little bonus. So do you want to hit play, Carol? And if you have any more questions, we'll just do a quick question answer at the end of this, and then we'll call it a day. All right, folks.
So you're going to come back after this?
I'm going to come back just for any last questions.
Okay.
And then we'll call it a day. So look out for, I want you to look out for all the little techniques that I've showed you and count how many you can count. Now I'm just going to give you an overview, summary of the whole drawing process. So the first thing I'm going to draw is the centre line. Every guitar has a centre line. So the next thing to do is to draw the nut and draw across each side and make a mark. The next mark we make is for the scale length. I've chosen a scale length 25 inches. From the takeoff side of the nut, I'm going to mark 25 inches. The next decision is to choose how many frets. I'm marking the last fret, 22nd fret, plus 1, end of the fretboard. We've got the ends, we need the width of the fretboard. So where does that come from? It comes from the bridge. My E to E spacing is here, and then I've added 4mm either side. Now I can draw on the sides of my neck. Okay. I've chosen this headstock. I like this headstock, I drew it myself. It's a nice roundy shape. If you do design your own, you have to be really careful about where you put your tuners. Now, the pickup locations, there needs to be 2mm gap between the end of the fretboard and the start of the pickup. We need to make sure this is on the centre. So we line that up,
and then we can use these 2 marks to align it on the centre line. So it prints through quite faint. Once you've gone all over the lines, you can peel it back and just check. The back pickup is 20mm from the scale length line. I've marked 2 humbuckers. The next job is to draw the body shape. One thing you could do if you were making your own shape, if you're not sure how big to make it, get another guitar, roughly draw around it, use that as a starting point. Why not? The job of the body is purely just to hold all the other parts in place. Now, I'm not going to tell you about every different type of knob and switch there is. In this case, I'm just going to choose simply a volume, a tone and a switch. Draw around them, and then we need to make a custom control cavity. All it is a hole that's big enough to accommodate these switches. And there's also this smaller recess. This is where the control cavity cover fits. We're going to talk about the neck joint style, and then we've got body styling, which is the carving. At the very least, what we do on the back is usually we do this, we call it the belly carve. Because we're looking at the front of the drawing and the belly carve is on the back, then we use a dotted line to represent that. We started with a centre line, and then we made decisions as we went. Each decision we made, I wrote down up here. Actually, I filled it in at the end, but don't tell anyone. This list here, all your decisions, this is your order list. So now you know what you need to order.
So there you go. Hopefully you got that now. You got it all in your head, and you'll be designing guitars every half an hour, a new design. If you want the full course where I go into all the ins and outs, then you'll need to go and sign up on the course. There's a few preview videos you can go and watch, but if you want the full on, I mean, it's 5.5 hours long, the full course, which goes into all the ins and outs, all the pickup choices, bridge options, and the different styles of construction that we were talking about a minute ago. So that's all there. Yeah, or if you just want to support us, you can just become a supporter. It's all there on the website, and you can download the patterns and the plans for free. Go and have a look at the forum. Yeah, we're live streaming every Wednesday and Saturday for the foreseeable future. We've been doing it since, well, about a month into lockdown we started, basically because all our other work has dried up, so we've got no gigs. We also gigging musicians. Our workshop courses aren't allowed to happen at the moment, so we're reduced to our online stuff. So I kind of feel like I'm back to when I was busking as a teenager. I feel like I'm busking again. Yeah, we need your support, guys, and we appreciate every little thing that you've done for us so far, and I'm amazed by all the amazing support that we've had. Like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. It all helps us a lot. The channel's approaching 5,000 subscribers, which is pretty unbelievable. Imagine that, 5,000 people all in one workshop. That'd be pretty crazy. So we've got a 5,000 subscriber special coming up. Got a few ideas for that, don't miss that. But yeah, tune in every Wednesday and Saturday. Don't worry if you can't make it live, you can always watch the rematch. We're going to try and make it a little bit different on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So tune in on Wednesdays for more random stuff, and on the Saturdays I'm working on this, building this playlist, guitar making tools and tech. So again, if you've made it till the end, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on Wednesday 1 o'clock. So we always live stream at 1 p.m. I'll see you on Wednesday at 1 p.m. and Saturday same time, same place. Remember, measure twice, cut once.